Hey everybody, welcome to part 3 of How to Play Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon by Awakened Realms. If you guys haven't watched part 1 or part 2, please go back and watch those. It'll explain how to get your first chapter of Tainted Grail all set up, and also how to set up your character. But for right now, we're just going to jump into it. So, this video, we're going to be talking about kind of what you're doing on your turn, and how you can spend your energy, kind of the order of how things happen, things like that. So this is actually like how to play the game. So the way we're going to start off is we are going to be referencing this Order of the Day card. Let's see if I can get that to focus just a bit better for you guys. But we're going to go through this thing step by step, and I'm going to explain it a little bit better. Man, come on. Sorry, my camera's being a little difficult. There we go. So we're going to go through this whole thing step by step, and I'm going to explain what all this means. Once I go through all this, you should know pretty much exactly how to play the game. So the first thing that it says on the Order of the Day, it says, remove the expired menhirs and discard locations that are out of the menhir range. So I'm going to move my character model for right now. So what that means is that if your menhir doesn't have a time token dial in its slot, because let's see, so if you look here, there's a bunch of numbers on the side. Starting from 8, it goes all the way down to 1. If this is at 1, and then the events tell you to reduce it down by 1 more, you then remove it out of the menhir. It stays for 1 more turn, and then at the start of the next day, you will remove it. Now, a couple things will happen when that happens. As long as your character isn't in the location, well, here, scratch that. So, when the menhir is removed, any card that is 1 space away in all directions, including diagonally, they will be removed from the map completely. Okay? Now, of note, let's say your character is in one of these locations when the menhir is removed. Your character can still get to safety by heading towards another menhir on the map that you hopefully will have on the map. But what happens is your character will lose 2 health and gain 2 terror every turn that you are in sort of the weirdness, in the area that isn't being protected by one of these menhirs. So once that's removed, take off the locations, or if your character is still there, try and get him to a safe zone, and then the locations will be removed. Okay? Let's see. Here, let's just do a quick demonstration of this real fast. These location cards aren't going to be accurately set up, but just as a quick demo. So let's say we have a menhir located here. So let's say this. So my character is going to be right here when this menhir expires. It'll be removed. I'll then take 2 damage and 2 terror. And then once I move him out of range that this menhir isn't covering, once again, menhirs will uncover tiles in one space away in all directions. So, for example, these 2 cards here are not within range of this menhir, so these 2 will be removed from the map. Okay? Let's reset to start again real quick. Okay. Alright, we're all set up. So, we're going to set this back in. So, after you removed any expired menhirs, the next thing you do at the start of the day is you reduce all time and menhir dials and remove time tokens. So, for example, at the start of your day, let's say there's a gray time token here, you would take this off of the location and put it back in the pile. Also, any time dials that you have set up, like I demonstrated in the last video, if on the map you have one of these time dials that looks like this, let's see if I can get that to focus just a bit more so you can see it, you will reduce from, for example, 5 down to 4 at the start of the day. Okay? Next thing you do is you reduce the menhir. So, for example, let's say our menhir is at 7. At the start of the day, you'll simply drop it down to 6. Okay? Now, of important note, on your very first turn, very first start of the game, your menhir will be at 8 if you're a solo player. You still reduce this down on your very first turn. So at the start of my turn as a solo player, it'll go from 8 down to 7. Okay? Now, let's say as we're playing, we're going to be reducing them down by 1 every single turn, so on and so forth. Once you go from 2 to 1, and then 2 to 0, you simply take it out. And the menhir will still be active until the start of the next day, when it tells you to remove any expired menhirs. Okay? Okay, next thing we have on the order of the day is we need to reveal the next event card. So I'm just going to use a random event just as an example, but this is your event deck. You will simply take the top card, flip it over, and read what it says, and do what it tells you to do. So for example, this card is a good weather card. Let's see if I can focus that up just a little bit better. But this is a good weather card, and it says your first travel today costs 1 less. Sorry, I wish I could. This is really annoying. I wish I could get this fixed. But either way, so yeah, anyways, it says good weather. Your first travel today costs 1 less. So this event deck can be filled with good stuff, but it also is filled with quite a lot of bad stuff. So after you reduce those down, reveal a new event card. Do what it says. Next step after that, you're going to move a guardian. Now, if you don't have a guardian, which is a kind of a big beefed up enemy on the on the map, you just skip this step, ignore it. But let's say you do have one. So, for example, we're gonna use this guy as our guardian for right now. Let's say here, I'm just gonna scooch this out just so we can see it. Let's say our guardian is located on location card 102, the Hunter's Grove. When it says move the guardian, you are going to take this d6, you're going to roll it and apply whatever you roll. So if you roll one of these directional sides, north, south, east, west, you will then move your guardian that direction. So let's say, for example, we land on south. You'll then take the guardian, move it down, and place it in location 101. Location 101. Now, if you roll and you land on this blank side, you just don't do anything and just leave it all be. If you roll this X, the guardian is then removed from the map, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. Okay? Now, just keep in mind, you don't want to run into these guys. They are very dangerous, and they're usually very high-leveled and very strong, and they will, most of the time, these are the things that are going to kill you. Okay? So, a couple other rules. So, let's say we roll the dice and we landed on east. That means we would have to go from this location to a location that actually hasn't been revealed yet. So what happens then? Let me just I'm going to triple check this real fast. Okay. So if your guardian is supposed to move to a location that hasn't been revealed yet, you actually will pick him up and you'll place him on the location that has the highest location number, which in our example would be location 105. So he would go from, instead of going to a blank space, he would simply go down to 105 down here. Okay? I think that's mainly everything, in terms of movement. A couple other rules with guardians. So let's say we roll the dice and it tells us to go south, and it goes here. We will then enter a combat encounter with the guardian. Also, if you start the day in a location that has the guardian and it didn't move, then you will then do a encounter with the guardian. If you move from this location into a location with a guardian, you will also do a combat encounter with the guardian. So these things are a huge pain. Try to avoid them at all costs, basically. Other little rule that is actually not in the rule book, but it's in the frequently asked questions thread on the Board Game Revolution site. Let's say a guardian is in a location and the menhir goes out, and the card that the guardian is on is going to be removed from the game. What happens with the guardian is he is also removed from the game as well. So if you can time it right to have the menhir go out while one of the guardians is not in this location, then that's a very, very happy thing. That's my brother coming home, by the way. Everyone wave. Dude, that was like super embarrassing. Alright, anyways.
We don't want to cut
I'll see what I can do. Okay, so we so just to go for real quick, we removed any expired menhirs, we reduced all the timers, we revealed the next event card, we moved the guardians. Last thing we do is we pick active item and secret cards. So within the item deck, there are a handful of different types of items. For example, let's see if I can find one real quick here. Okay. Okay. Perfect. And there are a handful of different types of item cards within the deck. Let's make sure I get this focus. Okay. If you look at the top here, it'll say javelin, but it's also a weapon. Fine garments is a piece of armor. Wicker shield is a shield, and Norse axe is also a weapon. You can only have one of these items active during the day, as long as it has a unique name to it. So, for example, you can only have one weapon active during the day, only one armor, and only one shield. So, if I possessed all of these items, and of note, you can have as many items as you can. It's kind of like Skyrim, where you have every single item in your bag, and you could just kind of whip out whatever you want. If I possessed all of these, I could keep my shield active for the day. I could keep my armor active for the day, but I would have to choose between one of these two weapons. So let's say I decided I want to have the Norse axe as my active weapon for the day. You don't discard this card, you keep it in your inventory, but you cannot use this and apply it during combat or simply use it throughout the day. Okay? So before you take your turn, before you start moving around the map, you have to decide which items are the actual active ones. Now, of note, if the card doesn't have any subcategory, for example, this fishing net doesn't have any subcategory at all, you can always have this be active. You can have as many of these active as you want because there's no subcategory for the item. Okay? All right, now that we've chosen all of our items that are active throughout the day, we then get to the fun part where we get to use up all of our energy by doing things. So, of note, if you're playing in a party of more than one person, each person in the party will do one action at a time. So, for example, player 1 will do one action, player 2 will do the next, player 3 will do the next, player 4 will do the next, and then we get back to player 1. This is a nice way just to kind of spread it out. That way there's not a ton of downtime between players. So, here, I'm going to grab my character board real quick just to keep demonstrating. This is where we get to spend our energy. And in terms of our character Bjor, he has 6 total energy to spend. He has 6 total energy to spend. And I'll get to what this means, these red sections in just a little bit, okay? So let's go over what actions you can do throughout your day. The first kind of main one you can do is you can travel, meaning that you can go from one location card to the other location card, and that costs you 1 energy. So when you travel from location card one to the other, you'll simply take your cube, drop it down by 1. Boom! You just performed a travel action. Now, a couple things that are important in terms of traveling. You can only travel between cards as long as the 2 location cards actually connect. If let's see if I can find a good example. For example, okay, the location card. Oh yeah, okay, here we go. So these 2 location cards. If you look, location card 109. Let's see if I can get that to focus a little better. Anyways, location 109 is going to be placed right here, which technically is next to location 105. But if you notice, there actually isn't a location number on this side of this card, meaning that you cannot travel from this card to this card. This is to, it's kind of like, there's basically like a mountain range here. You can't actually travel from here to here, just to make it a little more realistic. So make sure that there is the location cards are actually connected before you travel from one area to the other. Also of note, you can only travel up and down, left and right. You cannot travel diagonally, like so. Okay? So, let's see. So anyways, that's travel actions. Another thing that's important to note on location cards if you notice, some of these cards will have a little white lightning bolt symbol. Once again, I need to learn how to use this camera a little better, I think. So anyways, if you notice there is a little white lightning bolt right here. What that means is that as soon as you enter this location, read what the lightning bolt, what's on the location card next to the lightning bolt, and do the thing. For example, this card says draw a gray encounter when you enter this location once per day. So if I travel from here to here, I'll grab a gray encounter card, flip it over, and do the combat encounter with this card. Once you finish that up, make sure you take a time token, place it on the location to remind you that you do not, if you jump out of location and come back to it, if there's a time token there, you don't have to do the lightning encounter right there. Okay? Okay, let's see. So that covers basically all of traveling. Next is the big one that you're going to do very often, and that is exploring a location. So the way you explore is exploring a location costs 1. So drop that down to 1. And there's 2 ways to go about this. 1, you can remove everything off of the card that you're going to explore. You can flip it over. And this is one of the very basic explorations, the very first one you're going to do, so I don't feel too bad kind of showing you this. So you're going to flip this over. Actually, maybe the blurring will help you out. And you're simply going to read what's on the back of here. Lots of times it's going to say something like, lots of times it's going to tell you to refer to the exploration journal, but this kind of top half is kind of flavor text, kind of what's going on in the village at the time, what's happening in this location. Okay? And I'll get to the exploration journal in just a second. Of note, you could explore a location multiple times. So let's say we explore my starting location, and I notice, hey, there's like 5 different options here, and I kind of want to do all of them. You could literally spend a whole day exploring, and doing all the options. You can also do the same option multiple times. Let's say you explore this area, you have to do a skill check for some reason, and you fail it. But you're like, I want to succeed. So you would explore the location again, you would go through and try and complete that skill check. Just remember, each time you explore a location, it costs 1 energy every time you do it, no matter what option you choose after it's explored, okay? So the second way you can do it is if you don't really, like, let's say there's just all this junk on the card, and you're just like, man, that's a lot of stuff I gotta move just to see what's underneath the card. You could actually go into the exploration journal, and everything that's on the back of this card is actually inside of the location journal. So I'm going to flip to 101. Apologies if you view this as spoilers, but I think this is the best way to teach you guys. So we go to location 101, which is the Kunnakat farmhold. I'm sure I pronounced that extremely wrong. And this little gray box here, this is what is on the back of this card. So that way, if you don't feel like flipping over your cards or touching them, you can just go to the exploration journal and do this. Okay? And simply just read this. Every time, pretty much every single place you explore, there's going to be a couple different options of what to do. And you'll go to, like, for example, let's say you want to rest in your own home. That's one of the options here is rest for the day in your own home. Go to verse 5. You would then go down to verse 5. You'd read what it says and follow the instructions. Okay? Let's see. In terms of the exploration journal, the only other thing that I really want to show you guys is if you look down here, if you see this, like if it says, hey, go to verse 9, and you see something like this is sort of like a code something you have to decode in order to figure it out. So for example, this will say, so what this means is you will take 3 of these dials. You'll take 3 of these dials and you'll simply line them up like so that the picture matches where the skull is. So once this is all lined up, you will look at what these 3 numbers are on the very bottom, like so, and then you will go to the very back of the book, and I'm going to try not to show this off, but there's a section called the Book of Secrets. This little blue tab says BOS, and whatever those 3 numbers are, like let's say for example it was 451, you would then go to the Book of Secrets, find verse 401, read what it says, follow the instructions. Okay. The other big thing of note is lots of times it'll say something along the lines of, if you have the Winds of Weirdness status, do X. And what that means is on the back of your save sheet, you have a list of all these statuses. So for example, if it says, if you have the Winds of Weirdness status, you will look back here. If this box is checked, then follow the instructions as the exploration journal to tell you. Lots of times it'll say, if you have the Winds of Weirdness status, go to verse 9 instead of everything else. Okay? So, I think that covers pretty much everything in the exploration journal, and that's how you explore. You're going to be doing that very often, and of note, every single card every single location card can be explored, no matter what. Okay? Okay. I'm going to go back to traveling real quick because I just remembered something. So, this men here covers every card that's one space away from it. Now, the way it works, the way these locations become revealed is if you take your character and you travel here, as long as there are 2 connecting numbers here, as soon as you enter this area, these 2 locations will be explored. So I'm going to grab those cards. So this is all set up. And this is all set up. Now, same with down here. Let's say we travel from location 101 down to location 105. Now, this location only has one connecting location, which is 108. So you will reveal location 108, which is on this side. But since there's no connecting location here, we won't reveal what this card is. To do that, you'd have to go to location 104, which has the connecting one, and place it down. Now, another thing of note, on location 102, located here, it revealed these 2 cards. But if you notice, there's actually a 4th connecting location, 113. You will not reveal that location because it is beyond the safety of the men here. It is 2 spaces away, and this men here right here doesn't cover up there. Okay, so don't reveal locations beyond what the men here's cover. Okay, all right. So we've covered exploration. We've covered travel. I covered this in another section, but another thing you can do with your energy is you can use location actions. For example, this one says spend 1 energy, and that number can change. It could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 4. To use the Smith Shop, pay 1 wealth, draw 1 craftable item. And just a quick little reminder, when it says draw 1 craftable item, you'll pick up your item deck. You can shuffle it if you want, and just flip over cards until you find a card that has the letter C on the bottom left. You will take that card, and these cards will go back in your item deck. I usually like to give it a shuffle after every time I draw an item card. Okay, just a quick little reminder there. Okay, cool. So location actions, those are pretty obvious. It'll tell you how much it costs and what you do when you do that. Another thing you can do that doesn't cost you anything, if you're in a location that has the menhir symbol, you can check how you activate that menhir, and that's for free. You can do that anytime. I personally just allow it. Like for example, there's other location cards on this map that have the menhir symbol. If I want to check the requirements, I just go for it. But that's just me personally. The other thing you can do with your actions is you could activate items that you possess, or you can activate your character's special ability. Now, for example, my character Bior, he has a special ability, and all the characters have this, and it says spend 4 energy. Let's see if I can get that to focus on it just a little bit better for you. It says spend 4 energy, draw 3 random craftable items, and pick 1, only in settlements. So you can spend the energy wherever you are and activate that special ability. Also, there'll be certain item cards or secret cards that will have activated abilities on them. For example, I'm going to show you one of them right here. So, petty trinkets. You can spend, let's see if I can get that to focus a bit more. It's going to be the most common thing I'm going to say in this video is if I can get this to focus better. It says, spend 1 energy, gain 1 wealth for each point of perception, and discard this item only in settlements. So that's another thing you can do with your energy on that day. Excuse me. Let's see, there it is. Another thing you can do, and this mainly affects if you are playing in a party of multiple people, you can also pass your turn for free. And what that means is that once you pass, you're done with the day. You're going to stay in your location, you're going to rest, and you're going to wait for all the other players to use up their energy. Okay, and you can do that anytime. You don't have to spend all your energy every single turn. So it's a good thing to know. So that is all of everything you can do with your energy. Now, I'm gonna skip ahead in the part of the what you do during the day real quick. So on your energy track here, you'll notice that as you go down, there are these two slots here that are red, and this actually will tell you that your character is now exhausted. You have overexerted yourself. You have gone into the red. Now, doing that is fine. Sometimes you have to do that in order to maybe run away from a guardian, or you have to reach a menhir location in time before you die, things like that. The penalty of it is, if you're not exhausted, and at the end of it you get to rest and regain your energy, you get to go all the way back up to your starting energy slot. For your example, it is 6. But if you end the day and your character is exhausted, you then only get to gain, this is important, 4 energy. It's always 4 for every single character. So if you end the day and you're exhausted, you only gain 4 energy at the start of the day, which means you really only get 2 actions if you don't want to be exhausted at the end of the day as well. So it's a good thing to keep in mind. It's tough to manage it because sometimes you just want to do more, or you have to do more and you have to be exhausted, but the next day you're gonna feel it for sure. Okay? So, good thing to know. And I'll remind you guys about that when we get there as well. Okay, so we've covered what we do at the start of the day, we've covered what we do during the day, and now we're going to go over what happens at the end of the day. Okay, let me see if I can zoom in here real quick, see if I can get this to focus a bit more. The first thing you do at the end of the day is you are going to, come on, if I pull it in a little slower, I can do it. Anyways, at the end of the day, you are going to rest, consume 1 food, restore 1 health, and lose 1 terror. So, for example, if we go back to our character board, we would consume 1 food. Let's say our health was dropped down to 6 or something. We would restore 1 health, and our terror would go down by 1. Okay? This is also when you would restore your energy back up to 6. Now, one thing that's important to note, let's say my character's health is all the way at 6, or all the way up to the top, and I have 0 terror. I get down, and my energy, I haven't become exhausted yet. You could decide not to eat food, but what happens is if you don't eat food, your energy will automatically drop down to 0, and then at the start of the next day, your energy will only be at 4. So, if you want to get all of your energy possible, you do have to eat food at the end of every single day. But it is a choice. You don't have to eat if you don't want to. Okay? Let's see. For example, it says here, I'll just repeat it again. If you don't have enough food, or you don't want to, drop your energy to 0. If it was already at 0, lose 1 health instead. So, if you don't have any food, and you're completely exhausted all the way down to 0, you will then lose a health every turn that you don't eat food. Then it says restore energy to full. If you are exhausted, restore 4 points of energy instead. Okay? So now that we got that taken care of. Then we get to advance your character by spending experience points. So let's see. Let me get this set up real quick. So this is where we get to advance our character a bit. Let me grab a couple extra cubes real quick. So, there's 2 different things you can do with your experience points. Number 1, you can spend 2 experience points to get a new combat or diplomacy card from your advanced pool. So, let's say for example, I want to do that. I'm going to spend 2 experience points. I'm going to pick either my combat or my diplomacy advancement deck. We'll do combat for this instance. I personally like to shuffle the deck before I shuffle the deck now. You will then draw 3 cards, flip them over, and you get to choose one of these 3 cards, and you get to put it in your combat deck. Of note, your combat deck does have to contain 15 cards at a minimum. So let's say you place this in your combat deck and you now have 16 cards. You can actually take maybe one of the basic cards out just to kind of keep your combat deck nice and thin, and it keeps it just a little more consistent. Okay? But of note, you can't go below 15. You have to be at least 15. And there is no maximum to how big your combat deck can get. You could never take a single card out of your combat deck if you don't want to, but it is advised that you keep your combat deck nice and thin, just to keep it a little more consistent. Okay? The next thing you can do with your experience points is you can gain a point in one of your attributes. Now, the way this works is, I'll try and do this nice and slow. The way this works is your attributes are connected to each other across the way. So, for example, your aggression and your empathy are actually connected in a way. And the more points you have in aggression, the more expensive it's going to be for you to gain empathy. Same with courage and caution. Same with practicality and spirituality. So, let's go through a couple examples. Let's say I want to put a point into my empathy section. And by the way, this is all also explained on the back of your icon glossary in your character advancement section as well. So this is good to keep by just to remind you. For every point that you put in the attribute pair, it's going to cost you 2 experience points. So let's say, for example, we don't have any aggression and any empathy at all, and I want to increase that. I would, for the first point in this pair, I would spend 2 experience points, and then I get to put a point in my aggression. If I want to get a second point, I would spend 4 experience points, and then I could put a point in either my aggression or my empathy slot. Let's put it in empathy for just examples. If I want to get a third point, it would be 2, 4, 6 experience points to get the next one. For the fourth one, it would be 8. Now, let's say and that's the same with, once again, aggression and empathy are connected, caution and courage, practicality and spirituality. So another thing, for example, let's say we have three in total points in our aggression and empathy. That does not affect how much it costs for your practicality and spirituality. I only have 1 point in my practicality. If I want to get a point in my spirituality, it would only cost me 4 total points. Or 4 total experience points to get a point in spirituality. Okay? Now, this is where the skill cards come in. Let's say, so I have my aggression all filled up. If I want to spend, I can spend 2, 4, 6 experience to gain one of these aggression skill cards. Okay? And for every skill card you have after that, it would be 2, 4, 6, 8 points for the next one, 10 points for the one after that, 12 points for the one after that. Always increments of 2. So let's say I spent my 6 points to get a aggression skill card. You then can go through, and once again, this is all open information. You can flip through these anytime you want and read all of them. But so you go through, you're going to pick a card by your choice. It's not random. And then you pick which side you want to have. And keep in mind, once you choose a side, you can't flip it back. You can't, decide, oh, I don't like this one, I want to flip it over. You can't do that. Once you decide, it is set in stone. And then you would take this and you would simply slip it underneath here on your character board, and that's just a nice reminder of what the skill does. And also keep in mind, like, hey, I want to get 2 skills in my I want to get another aggression skill card. The way that would work is you'd spend 2, 4, 6, 8 to get the next one. Okay? Hope that all makes sense. If you guys have any questions about that, just leave it down in the comments. I will happily help you guys out with any questions. Okay? So, that's how you spend your experience. You do that at the end of the day after you've eaten your food and rested. Next step after that, you can modify your deck. So that means you can take cards out. You can put cards in that you've got from spending your experience and drawing from the advancement pools. You can swap them up all any way you want. Just make sure there's at least 15 cards in the deck at the end of the day. Next thing you do, if you're in a location with a dream icon, read the dream. So, I think I've already gone over this, but just real quick, this is at this point, if your location has this little blue symbol here, turn to the corresponding location in the exploration journal. This is location 104, the one I was in here, and you will read this dream sequence. Now, just another healthy reminder, if your character's health is in the red, or if your terror is in the red, you will receive a "You Are Dying" or "You Are Going Insane" card. If you possess either of these cards, instead of reading the dream sequence, you will read the nightmare sequence, and usually it's pretty bad. So don't let that happen. Okay. After that, it says, and then you start the next day. Go to stage 1, and then you go whoop all the way back to the top. Okay? So that's basically what you're going to be doing every day as you play this game. I think I've basically covered everything that you're going to need to know to play the game. The next 2 videos we're going to go over how combat works and how diplomacy works. And after that, I think pretty much everything should be covered. Hope this video helped you guys out. If there's anything else I think of that I need to tell you guys about, I will make a video about it. So thank you guys for joining me. I hope you guys have a great night, and we will see you in the next video where we go over combat and diplomacy.